All right, we're recording on YouTube. I'm just going to put the link for the recording here on Blackboard, and I'll start off the recording for you guys. Make sure that we, for those people who need closed captioning support, again, it's up online, so we can support that. All right, so welcome back. We are Game 2005. That's Game Physics in the fall 2021 semester, and it's week 9, part 1 of our broadcast. And good morning to everybody. Yes, you're going to get the next assignment today. It should be available to now. What I want to talk about today is some changes to some of the things that we're going to be doing. Okay, so in terms of topics, we had projectile motion that was planned for this week, as well as conservation of energy, which was the topic of this week. After having a discussion with Josh, we kind of learned a couple things. Okay, so one thing was that some of you, when it comes to the physics topics, things like vectors and collision detection and all those kind of things, have reported to Joss during lab that the understanding is still weak when it comes to certain things, and that's fine. And then we had other conversations, Joss and I, where we were thinking about the second half of semester. Second half of semester is all about collision detection and response. So what I want to do with you guys, and the stuff that Joss will do with you as well, is for assignment 3 and 4, we're going to be using the Unity 3D game engine. All right. Now, again, there's going to be some limitations, and I'll talk about the assignment today in detail. But basically what we're doing is, yes, projectile motion is going to be talked about briefly. But what we want to focus on right now, you and I'm going to give you a little bit of a primer of Unity. And we kind of did this together for some of you in first year when I had some of you in Game Production 1. So some of you may remember Unity. Some of you may have done Unity in separate projects, personal projects. You may have also done a bit of an internship places or whatever, or just fooling around with Unity. And today I want to get back to using Unity again, specifically for physics for the second half of semester. And I'll talk about this as one of the changes that we're making. So originally, assignment 3 last year, around this time, was SDL and 2D collision detection. But when I was speaking with Joss and Alex, we kind of said that, you know what, we did a lot of the collision detection and response stuff for 2D in AI. So a lot of the stuff that we had already done. So we're thinking what would be best. And instead of doing Unity in 2D and then Unity in 3D and having a lot of confusion there, we decided that you would be learning Unity 3D starting today, right? And this is specifically just to make use of the 3D engine instead of you guys using your OpenGL. Yeah, we're gonna go back and do that again, and I'm gonna be doing a bit of a primer on Unity as well. We're gonna kind of make sure you download everything and so on for those people who weren't in that section. Now, how many labs did you guys all have a lab with Joss already, or is there another lab that's happening on another day? If you've already had the lab with Joss, how far did he take you? That's the question that I want to talk about. Because again, I'm going to talk more about, kind of a primer to Unity as well, right? And giving you some additional things. But I'm also going to go over the details for your assignment, which has been released today. Okay, so I'm going to start with that. How far did he go? And Neil, maybe you can tell me, how far did Joss go in terms of stuff? We made spheres move. Awesome. Okay, so you did some stuff. But let's talk about a couple things here that I want to do. So this week, and this is you in lab as well as you with me, I want to make sure that you guys have some resources to learn Unity and all that kind of stuff. In this PowerPoint, we also have physics, conservation of energy. And instead of me going through the PowerPoint document today, like I normally do, and go through the lecture of moving objects with the script. Good. Okay, excellent. we're going to be talking about Unity from my perspective. So I'm going to give you another way, kind of my own way of starting off Unity. And I'm also going to make sure that people who didn't have a chance for whatever reason to install Unity or whatever, I'm going to talk about 2021 119F1, how to get it if you haven't had a chance to get it. And this is something that was covered in lab already. All right, so some of that stuff. But basically what it does is this lecture talks about energy, the differences between kinetic energy and potential energy, and so on. And it talks about how one of the things that the key elements, and I'll talk about the keys, summary of what we talk about from this particular lecture. It's all around how energy can neither be created nor destroyed, but actually transferred. So he talks about the transfer of energy in this entire PowerPoint. So please read through the PowerPoint on your own when you have a chance to do so. Okay, so this is some good stuff. There's also one other thing I'm going to put up later on. I'm going to put up the, if I can, I'll put up a video, short video about about this information up on Blackboard later on today, where you can watch the video for information about the physics part of that we're talking about here. But first, before we get to anything else, what I want to talk about is assignment 3 details. So assignment 3, and we're going to talk about part 1 details. Assignment 3 is actually going to be broken down into 2 parts. Even though on our slide it looks like assignment 3 and 4, I want you to think about assignment 3 and 4 as one big assignment, right? Where assignment 3, you develop a physics system, and Joss is going to be helping you in lab to put that together slowly to build assignment 3 for week 12. And then assignment 4, you're actually going to do 3D collision and 3D response by that time. So that's what we're going to have in assignment 4. Okay, so that is happening, further up. Can we stay in our groups of 3? Yep, what I've done, I'll talk about the groups in a second, Neil, but what I've done is I've created another group set for you guys. So let's talk about assignment 3. Assignment 3 part 1 is also up and should be available to you guys. It's up on Blackboard already. All right, let's talk about the assignment itself. So again, the assignment is a ball pit with a 3D collision detection and response system. That is the main assignment. This assignment is broken down into 2 parts. This is the first part of a 2-part assignment, all right, for you guys. So this is the first part. And this one is due, the first part is due, group size is 1 to 3. And if you notice up online, there is a new group set called A3 groups. Please, again, rejoin A3 groups. I know it's a pain, but there's reasons for this, because some people have asked me to leave their A2 groups. They don't want to be in the same group again, and that's okay. Join A3 groups. You can stay in the same groups that you were before if you want to, or form new groups of up to 3 people. Okay, so that's the thing you're going to be doing. This is due week 12, so it's Friday, November 26th, 2021 at midnight. And what you're going to be doing is using a series of C# scripts in Unity. You're going to develop your own 3D collision detection and response framework, which allows you to make game objects behave with kinematics and some rigid collision, right? And the system should support sphere-to-sphere collision. This is the collision detection, system you're going to make, and sphere-plane collision. You're going to use your system to make a simulation of a small ball pit constructed of at least 5 planes with at least 20 spheres dropping into it. Use Unity to arrange the objects and render the scene. Again, you may study Unity's physics system as a design guide to build your own, but you must not use any pre-existing physics features. So Unity is really there just as a template, if you will, or as a graphics engine. That's what it's for. So it's in 3D. So what's not expected from you is for you to use anything that's built in from Unity from a physics perspective whatsoever, right? So that's not allowed. So no rigid bodies, no colliders, none of that stuff is allowed. And we're going to talk about those constraints. And then what you're going to do is create a short video, again, 5 to 10 minutes max, with your favorite screen capture and streaming tool. My recommendation is OBS, showing the simulation working. You're going to describe the system architecture, showing your code and objects and how they are connected, and show how to add new physics objects using your system. If possible, demonstrate the robustness of the system by tweaking and stressing the simulation, and you can do that through a series of controls. Okay, so we'll talk about this. So again, feature, kinematic systems. So developers can designate an object to have properties of mass and velocity, and whether or not an object is affected by gravity. Okay, in play mode, gravity accelerates objects. Allow gravity to be tweaked. So you can modify gravity in play mode in some way. I recommend some kind of user interface for you to do so. Okay, and we'll talk about some ways of doing or putting together a quick user interface in Unity today, right? A collision detection system. So developers can designate an object to be treated physically as a sphere. So make a sphere collider. And sphere intersections are detected and responded to automatically. When sphere intersect, they are pushed apart the correct amount so that they no longer intersect. Again, we're going to be going over some of the theory behind this over the next several weeks, right? And it should help you understand how to do some of this stuff when it comes to coding. Developers can designate an object to be treated physically as a plane as well. And sphere plane intersections are detected and responded to automatically. When spheres and planes intersect, they are pushed apart the correct amount so that they no longer intersect. And one thing is you're also going to get marks for code quality, which is things like helpful names, comments, organization, use of white space, all that stuff. Systems should be scalable. Things that you build should be scalable. We're looking at good performance for code and avoid hard-coded relationship or magic numbers. So we should actually have those available in the inspector, as opposed for that to be hard-coded in the in your code. Okay, so from a demonstration perspective, explain well. Demonstrating good understanding. Reading code line by line does not show understanding. It's like kind of going through and go, this is what my system does, and talk about how it works. Couple things that are mandatory are your video submission. So your video, maximum length 10 minutes, again, or thereabouts. At the start of the video, there must be some kind of title card or slide, like we talked about before, with the names of your partners and your student numbers and so on. And we should be able to hear you and see the video, your screen, and it must match the project submission exactly. So in other words, whatever you submit, so we've had situations where the project that you've submitted in the video, very different, okay? And your project submission is mandatory, must match the video. Project must run on Unity 2021 on Windows. You're going to submit either a link to a private GitHub repository containing the entire Unity project and source code. Be sure to add your instructors as collaborators on the repo. If, by the way, one thing I have to mention for this one is when you're looking me up and stuff like this on GitHub, some people have added one of my accounts, but not the other one, and you've added the wrong one. And so what ends up happening is I don't have access to your GitHub repository. Please add both of me. If you see two of me on there, add both of my accounts as collaborators. It's going to be an extra click, okay? And this way, I might get 2 emails. I don't care. But at least this way I can see your project no matter which one you click on. So there's less issues. Unfortunately, I can't take the other one away because I use both of them for different reasons. So just add me twice if you're confused. But the one that you want to add is my last name at hotmail.com. So this one. That's the one you want to add me on. People are I'm adding my first name, last name. That is a different account. So if you add this one, my last name at GitHub, at Hotmail, which is my general inbox for everything, you'll add me as a collaborator, no problem. Same thing with Joss. You can use Joss's, GitHub online as well, and I'm sure he shared that information with you. But again, I'll be your primary marker on this one, so there should be no issues. Project constraints. Let's talk about some project constraints. So the purpose of this assignment is to understand classical physics and physics systems, right, in games by developing your own physics engine. Unity is permitted to use in this assignment purely for rendering 3D shapes. As an alternative to writing your own 3D engine and renderer, you are not permitted to use the following. No use Unity physics engine whatsoever. Can't use it. Anything from Unity's physics API, right? Any physics plugin, scripting plugins from third-party sources, Unity rigid body components 3D and or 2D, no Unity colliding is allowed, no ray casting or line casting or any other pre-existing component, script, or system that provides physics, simulation, collision detection, or collision response. Using any of the above component systems, scripts, or tools will automatically result in a grade of 0 for this assignment. Okay, so that's important to note. The submission will not be accepted without both your video explanation and project. And in addition, the submitted project must be the same as the version demonstrated in the video. Failure to adhere to the requirements will result in a 0 for this assignment. And here is a quick rubric that Joss put together, which I think is awesome in terms of how you'll be marked. So typically we'll make a rubric that does this: non-existent, partial, working, and excellent, and where you get marks based on some of this stuff. Partial, if you notice, if it's partially missing, so a component is missing or partially functioning, you'll get something between 50 and 75%. And if it's working, you'll get something between 75 and up, typically around 75%. And the reason why I'm saying around is because we have some flexibility, and instead of giving you 75 for each of these pieces, right, you might get a mark up or down depending on if when we're marking there is you've added something that's really cool, but it's also broken on this side, so kind of some play in terms of how the rubric is going to work. So that is your assignment, and that is due, like we said, the first part to a 2-part assignment, but the second part is actually you doing collision response, is due week 12, Friday, November 26, 2021 at midnight, Toronto time. Okay, so that is what you're making. On that, I was thinking about putting together a template for you, right? And when I was working through the template, I thought to myself, what might be best, and this is what we're going to be doing today, is let's make the template together. That's what I'm going to be doing with you guys today. Okay? So let's talk about this and talk about how this all works. In the process, we're going to learn more about Unity and all that kind of stuff as well. So I'm going to give you a starter. I'm going to give you something that you're going to use from today to make your journey into getting this assignment 3 done well. It's going to kind of help you out, okay? So one of the things that I want to talk about again is, please don't forget the physics piece, the conservation of energy. I think it's a good topic. You're not going to be tested on it. There will be no theoretical test at the end. There's only going to be a final test that will ask you to do something in Unity. So again, it's going to be based on the work that we're doing in assignment 3 and 4. So look for that change coming up. All right, so that's Intro to Unity is happening, and we're going to be using Unity in the labs every single day that you kind of come into it. So I think it's going to be a little bit more interesting. And Neil's asked, will the template be posted as well? Absolutely. So today, after we're done doing the template, I'll post it. And I'll also talk about ways of doing using GitHub and everything else. So that's really what I want to start with. We have very little time. We only have 2 hours together. So I want to get right to the template part together. So one thing to note is what you want to do is download Unity if you haven't had a chance to do it already. So this is the link for Unity. When you download Unity, you have a chance to download it, the Unity Hub. I recommend downloading Unity Hub V3 Beta for Windows. So this is the link for the download. Okay, so again, if you haven't had a chance to do that so far in labs, you missed a lab or something else, that's okay. Here is the link for the download. So download Unity Hub V3, which is installer. All right, that's what it is. So that is an installer for Unity. That's what it does. So that's the link for that one, please. And then the next link that you want to download is, of course, you've had to sign up by now. And if you haven't signed up already for Unity, you should sign up and register. The other thing that we want to use is Unity 2021 1.19 F1, and that is going to be found in the Unity archive. You should have already done this with JOS, but just in case you haven't done that, I'm going to put the link here for you to download that. So that is download Unity editor version 2021 1.19 F1. That's the one we're going to be using from the Unity archive. Okay, that's where you get it. Okay, so that's the link for that. If you haven't had a chance to do that already, here it is. This is the second link that's there. Neil's asking, would mine be version 3 if I downloaded it at the beginning of last school year? No, but you can switch to it. You can switch to version 3 if you want to. And we'll talk about that in a second, how to switch to version 3. Even if you already have the older version, we can switch to it right now together. And I'll talk about that. Okay, so that's the second one. The other one that I recommend is because we're going to be doing a bunch of Unity stuff. And to help you with understanding, I highly recommend you download or you follow for yourself. Here's homework for this week. All right, homework to help you. I highly recommend you do this session 1, Unity Essentials, which is really going to step you through a small game, how to put together a small game. Now, this does a 2D platformer micro game, but it's okay because what it's going to do is it's going to actually teach you the essentials of Unity. So if you've never used Unity before and you want a refresher, I think this is a great tutorial where they step you through all the stuff that you need. They have a live recorded session again from the folks at Unity that can get you through it. So I think this is another one, a resource that you can use to step through. And this is the kind of the same thing that I would have given you in first year, first semester when we did game production. Typically, I'll give you some kind of resource like this. And that's what I've done with the folks in game production 1 this semester, right? So this is, kind of a Unity tutorial, right? Micro game, right? And this is for homework. All right, so that's one I want you guys to do. Again, it's 2D, but it doesn't matter. What it'll do is it'll give you the basis of how to use Unity, what Unity is, and all that kind of stuff. Shimron says, can I use my Unity 2020.2.1? No. Nope, that's not the instructions. The instructions is 2021 119F1 is the one that we're using, Shimron. So if you've got something else, download this one too. All right, that's what I'm asking you to do. All right, so please don't use another version. So why are we doing this? We're doing it because do we have to use Unity Hub 3? No, but I think it's really awesome, and I'll talk about that in a second. So Unity Hub 3 looks like this. It's got dark mode, but let's suppose you don't want to use it or you don't have it. In your preferences, as an example, if you go to advanced, I'm in the advanced beta channel. That's what I am. I can go to production. And if I do that and I switch back, it's going to ask me to reboot my system, right? So it says restart now. And now it's going to ask me it's going to re-download Unity Hub, which is really quick, guys, like super, super fast, right? And when it's done, and when it's finished downloading, right, here it is. You can see this is the older version of Unity Hub 22.45. So let's suppose you have this from last year or something like this. It's the official production version, and you don't want to use, for whatever reason, the latest version of Unity. You can certainly deal with this, and it's not going to affect me in any way. You have 2021 127F1. No, please, Kenny, go with 2021 119F1, which is what I've asked you to do. All right. So what you can do is if I go back to this little wheel here and I go to advanced, and if instead of production, I can switch, and this is for you, Neil. If you want to switch from production to beta, it'll automatically switch your channel. So when I go back from preferences, what it'll ask me to do is download Hub 3.00 Beta 6 available. So you do that and you restart and install, and then you can move from the old Unity version to the new one. And I'm telling you that the new Unity Hub version I think is better, and it gives you other advantages over the regular production version, which we're moving away from very shortly. So I highly recommend downloading and installing Unity Hub version 3. Nope, it's not going to cause any problems. I haven't seen any problems with Unity Hub version 3 at all so far. Okay, now, except for right now, where I've just restarted Unity from the production version to the other one. Again, not totally worried. But one thing you should probably think about, let's see if I can restart it. One thing, oh, there it is. One thing you should really think about is when you're in Unity Hub version 3, is it okay if you don't? Yeah, you can. If you're really worried about it, you don't have to. I'll talk about that in a second, Ethan. Just bear with me. So So first thing is, if you've worked with the older version of the Unity Hub, it's okay. I recommend the new version. It's better, and it's not going to affect you in any way. How did I update the hub to 3? You go to your preferences. It's on the right-hand side, the little preferences wheel. And again, what you want to do is go to advanced. It'll be in preferences and switch the channels from production to beta. And once you do that and you close this little preferences thing off, or you go back, it will ask you to download at the top. There'll be the Unity Hub 3 is available, and you can download and install it. Again, this is being recorded, guys. So I'm going to keep moving from here. So one question I also had is, Ethan says, I don't know which modules to add. So if I click on installs, notice for me, I have 2021 119 F1, but if you actually add install editor, it's not going to be listed here. And that's why I asked you to go to the Unity archive right here and click on this link, Unity Hub, right? So Unity 2021 119 F1, click Unity Hub. It's going to open up in Unity. And when you do that, it's going to open Unity and it's going to say, not this because I already have it, but for you, it's going to say, do you want to install this editor? La, 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 la. Okay? It's going to activate it inside of your Unity Hub. Doesn't matter whether it's version 3 or whether it's version 2X, whatever it is. Okay? So let's suppose I want to install the latest version, 27. I'm not going to do this. This is not part of the exercise, but I want to show you. What you want to do is I only need you to install the following. Okay, so the 2 modules that I want you to install are WebGL support, okay, and Windows Build support. That's it, just these 2. Don't even install the documentation. Uncheck this, you don't need it. All right, so if you download these 2 modules, you're going to see that the total space required is 5.9 gigabytes. That's it, or something around that level, because here I'm downloading and installing 27. It's not 27. You're doing this with 19. I already have 19, so I can't reinstall it. It's already there. Okay, so please make sure you do that. You just download Windows Build support and not Lumen, WebGL, which is about 6 gigs, okay, together. All right, so those 2 things right here. Once you've done that, you click the install button, it's going to do its process. It's going to take time for you to install Unity, all right? Neil's asking, is it okay if we already installed more or should we remove things? Don't remove anything. If you've already got 2021 119 F1 installed and it's working for you, don't remove a thing. Don't waste your time. Because again, you can have extra modules. It's not going to affect you in any way, okay? However, where you can look at the video, Richard, I'm sorry, I got to move on, but it's only the Windows support and WebGL support that you need. Okay, so what I'm moving on now is the next part. When I've downloaded and installed Unity, right, as an example, so I've downloaded and installed Unity at this point. Again, I'm assuming that just Windows. I don't need UWP, all right, because UWP, again, is for consoles mostly and that kind of stuff. We just need Windows, basic Windows support. Okay, so just no UWP. All right, so again, in my projects, I want to kick off a new project, and this is going to be your template. So we can do it together. Worst case scenario, I'm going to post this at the end of today, and you can use the thing that we're making together for your starter, right, for your assignment 3. So that's what I'm going to call it. So here's a new project, right, as an example. And notice that in Unity, make sure you select the proper Unity version when you're creating it. In Hubs, it gives you a very clear way of doing it. It also does the same thing on the old Hub, but it's just be careful to select the proper Unity version to create your project. Okay, what I want to do is create a 3D core project. Notice that I have many, many templates. The older version of Unity displays these differently, and sometimes they're not even available. All right, so again, I want to use 3D Core as the template that I want to install. Not HDRP, not URP, just the core component itself. Please don't use these, okay? And then click on Make a New Project. So I'm going to call this GAME2005 in the fall 2021 semester, and it's going to be Assignment 3 Starter. That's what we're going to call it, okay? Now, you can call it Assignment 3 because mine is going to be the starter where you can take my project, modify it, and then use it for your project, okay? Again, I want to target GBC. It's going to be in 2005. You can see that I've already done it. I was working on it, and then I'm saying to myself, yeah, maybe not. Maybe we'll work on it together, right? So let's just put it here. Select my folder. And then I'm going to click Create Project. Now, if you're using the proper version, 2021 119F1, when I click Create Project, it's going to start installing the libraries and the dependencies for your modules here. So notice it's copying the template library. So that's including all the packages in the template. You know we are downloading 2021-1 because of this image. If you have another image other than this, you've got the wrong Unity version, all right? And why I'm asking you to download 2021 119F1 is that's what everyone else should be using, including Joss, right? So the reason for this is everyone's on the same page. 2021 119F1, remember it came out in the 1st of September 2021. Next semester, when we move into 2022, I'm going to upgrade to the latest version. Notice that we are at 27 as an example. As of October 26th, and we have weekly builds. They're just patches, that's what they are, but they have a difference. Some of them fix issues, but again, you might see different effects, side effects, if you use a different version than mine. Mine and yours will react differently, and this way, if it works for me, it'll work for you. So please stick with 2021 119F1, this one, and no other, okay? No. Not 2021.2, 2021.1, 19F1, not 2021.2, please. Okay. Okay, let's move on. You're funny, Sherma. All right, so now that I've loaded this, you'll see something that looks like this. When you start off your Unity journey, it'll look just like this. Again, this is a layout, and I don't like it. I talked about this before in first year. I said, this layout is not good, and there's a bunch of reasons for this. And one of the reasons why, in my opinion, this layout is bad, right, is because for this particular layout, what you have is you have your hierarchy over here and your scene here. Hidden behind that is a game and your asset store, which we no longer really need, and so on. And you have your assets down here and a console that's hidden over here. And there's very little screen, and Joss laughs at me when I say this, real estate, okay? There's the screen real estate is low. So that's why I don't like to use this setup. I mean, some people I've seen do one of these, and they can make it so that they have more real estate. But again, your inspector and your hierarchy are so far apart. A lot of times I want to be able to have them closer together. So that's why I do not use this layout. Instead, what I start off with, and do this with me, guys, again, as an alternate. If you don't like it, you can always go back to the layout that you've been using before. But I start off with another layout called tall. All right, so I kind of select the tall layout. It kind of pushes things to the right-hand side. And I'll talk about why. Because what you can do is you can kind of push it right to the right-hand side. Now look at all the space I have here in my editor. Lots, tons, in fact. And this is why I really want to do that, right? So the asset store, again, I don't even use it anymore. Kind of like in Unity, I kind of go on the web and use it, and that's what we should do. I use the asset store too every day, but I don't do it inside of the editor. There's no asset store in the editor anymore. It doesn't work. Should you go out and buy a second screen? I don't know if you want to. But yeah, I just kind of use something that looks like this. I think this is just much easier, right? Okay, so now that I have this, I'm missing one thing, which is my console. So I'm going to go to Window, and I'm going to go to General, and then Console. And the console window, again, a lot of the windows that you see here are floaters. You can put them wherever you want. I usually put the console window under here. I don't even need the console very much. So I think this is pretty good like this. The other thing I don't like to do is in my project assets. I don't like massive folders like this. I want to make them so that they're lists like this. So that's what I do when I set up. When I first set up Unity, what I do is I change the sample scene name. So I go inside the scenes folder and I change the sample scene before I add any other code to main. All right, that's what I do. So that's the kind of first thing that I do. There's main. And then what I want to do is organize my assets so I can, what does it say here? Tabs, multiple windows exist. Philip says, yeah, I want to look like Gimpy from undergrads. Okay, that's fine. So again, in the assets folder, I have a scenes folder. I'm going to have other things. One of the main things I want is a scripts folder. Here's scripts. And these two folders are special for me. I'm going to use them a lot. I'm going to use maybe multiple scenes and multiple scripts. So what I do is I surround these two things with square brackets, like so. Some people use underscores. But what this does is it makes sure that in the, because assets are all alphabetical, folders are alphabetical, it makes sure that your scripts and your scenes pop out first before anything else. Okay, next, let's add some additional folders to organize ourselves. One is a materials folder, right? You should know what materials are now as you're doing OpenGL. Another one would be a models folder. Materials, some models. You can also have textures if you want to add textures to your scene later on as well. All right, again, we may not use all of this, right? But materials, models, textures, and most likely a good one to use would be prefabs. So prefabs is where we're going to have our models we can use over and over again. I agree. You know what? To be honest with you, to me, the most important things when we have multiple screens, it really does help a lot, right? All right. So again, scenes, scripts, materials, models, prefabs, textures. If in making a game, I may also have audio. Again, I don't need that here with you, but I'm just demonstrating here what I would have in terms of my folder structure. Notice that empty folders are outlines and folders with stuff in them are filled in. Okay, so these are empty. And we can have other items in here as well. Now, everyone has a different way of doing this kind of stuff. All right, so some people, example, they have a package and they want their materials, their models, and their scripts all in one place. Not me. I like separating things out. Joss may have discussed his layout slightly different. But what you can do as soon as you have your layout, right, that's kind of put together, on the right there, what you can do is you can save your layout. So you can save your layout and you can call it whatever you want, right? And once you save it, it'll appear inside of your layout so that you can use anytime you want. So example, if I move away to default again, you can see that this goes back to the default layout. This one is the one you can't change, but I can always go back to my 3D layout. All right, so here's my 3D layout, and you can see that I'm back to what it was before. Okay, so that's how I start off. I start off with this layout. Okay, so, and if we look and see here, I've got a couple of things in the scene. I've got a main camera, and something that Joss may have talked about before is that every game object has a transform component. So anything that's in the hierarchy is a game object that's inside of the scene container. So main would be the scene container, and the hierarchy would have a list of game objects. That's what's in here. Notice that, again, it's right next to each other. That's why I find it very useful to have this layout compared to the default one, okay? Again, it's up to you how you work, and it's not going to affect me in any way. I'm just recommending at this point, okay? So main camera, because when you give me your stuff, I'm just going to convert it back to my layout so I can use it, right? Well, that's on you, Shimron. I'm just telling you how I feel when I code, right? So again, your main camera is here, and again, your main camera has a transform. And the only difference between a main camera and an empty component, let's add an empty component. So I want to add an empty, right? When I add an empty, it's just named game object, right? And notice that the only thing that the game object will have is a transform. So all game objects have a transform, and you should have learned this with Joss, right? So transform, this has a transform, this has a transform, but these two items here, main camera and directional light, are specialized game objects. One of them has a camera component and an audio listener component, that's the camera, and the directional light has a light component. But otherwise, if I was to remove the light component, or in the main camera, the camera component or the audio listener, it just becomes a regular game object. So all game objects have a transform, which are made up of 3 vectors, right? A position, rotation, and scale vector. And they're all vector 3s. That's what they're called in Unity, okay? That's why I kind of tried to make the SDL engine work just like that for you guys for vector 2s, so that way you're used to it, and when you come to Unity, it looks very similar. Neil says, so much clearer than Unreal. Yeah, I agree. I think it's easier, but I mean, Unreal has real advantages as well, Neil. Really cool stuff that you can do with Unreal. All right, so now that we know how to add stuff together, again, this is a review. Let's also talk about the game preview. So the game preview is the other tab here. A lot of times what we say is when we press play, we see everything in game preview format, right? So what I want to do today is think about our assignment. So let's go back to our assignment and let's see if we can produce something that looks like this together, right? Again, it says what we want is sphere, sphere, plane, and sphere, plane collision, okay? So sphere, sphere, and sphere, plane collision. Those are the 2 collision systems we need. So we need spheres and planes. That's the only thing we need, okay? So let's add in a plane. I'm going to go back to my scene and let's add in a plane here, which is your main plane. And we'll talk about how to move things around inside of your screen. So again, 3D object, we're going to say plane, right? And that would be your first plane. Let's suppose we call this the ground plane. We'll call this ground. And this is where all of your the balls in your simulation, or the spheres in your simulation, are going to appear. It's pretty bland right now, as you can see. It's white, right? As an example. And if I look at my game, it looks like this, right? We want to give you a view that looks like this. So let's do that with the camera first. So before we move anything, I want to move the camera around to here. Again, what I want to do is, kind of select the camera object, right, as an example. And the controls in the top here, you can access with some shortcut keys, right? So Q is the hand, which basically allows you to pan your scene around. W is gives you the control handles. E gives you rotational handles. R gives you the ability for you to stretch or scale an object. Okay, so those are the 2 ones. W, E, and R are the most common shortcuts that we're going to see a lot in the game, plus Q allowing us to move things around, okay? So what we want to do is grab that camera and move it. Now, here's the preview of what the camera is seeing right now. So I want to move it so that the plane is going to be, kind of over here. Now, there's a couple ways we can do this, okay? I can move the camera or I can move the plane. It doesn't really matter how you do it. I'm going to move the camera around so that you can see it in the way I want you to see it. So again, here's the camera. I'm going to select the camera itself and then click the W key. So the first thing I'd like to do is move the camera by pulling on this blue handle. So move it to the right. And you can see that on the right, you can see that on the Z-axis, I've moved the camera to a -0.1. Okay, you can see that the camera now in the plane looks like over here, right? And if you want to see this from a top-down perspective, the top right here, right, that you're seeing, take a look at this top right, you can see that I am looking at it from a perspective view. If I click any one of these things, I can shift my viewport to look at it from different sides. For example, I want to look at it from the side, right? Here's my camera that looks from the side. Here's from the Z-axis, and here's from the Y-axis from the top. So you can see the camera is parked dead in the middle of my screen. This is the top that I'm looking at. You can clearly see that, yeah? So what I want to do here is I want to park my camera at one corner, right? And because this is the X-axis and this is the Z-axis, I want to move my camera so that it's kind of on the bottom left corner of the screen, something like right here, okay? Now notice my camera only captures part of the screen because it's looking in this direction. I haven't changed the angle of its look in any way, okay? Now what I want to do is I want to rotate the camera here in this viewport so that it looks towards the middle of this plane. All right, so that's the first thing. So again, I'm going to use the rotation tool. You can click onto it, or you can use the E key for rotation, and I want to rotate across the y-axis only, so only this axis alone. So I rotate, okay, and you can see what I'm doing. I'm rotating so it's looking at an angle. And what I can do is numerically, I can put the angle at 45 degrees, which is exactly what I'm looking at here in the camera view. And that's the viewport that you're going to see in game. You're going to see that this is looking here like this. All right, this is the first thing that we're going to do with the camera. So camera, we can move any object like this. We can use the viewport settings on the top here, so we can select our viewport the way we like. In fact, if I really want to, where it says, see this, like this little perspective marker, if I click here, I can go to orthographic mode, so it looks completely flat, right? So I can go from orthographic projection to perspective projection. Sometimes it helps to do one or the other, right? And more control. That's the first step. So we're making the camera point kind of towards the middle. We've moved it to a negative 4.64. If I really want to, I can make it negative 5, which is really at the corner, right? Just to make it so it's exact. And if I want to move my z-axis, move that to the negative 5 as well. So kind of my z-axis and my x-axis are both at negative 5, pointing at a 45-degree angle this way. Okay, now let's look at it from the side. So again, from the x-axis. You can see what's happening here. So from the x-axis, it's way over here. Let's move it one more axis around, and we can keep moving it around the screen until you see it from the right angle. Why did I do this? Because if you look at it, this is what's happening. And again, one way I did that is if you press the middle mouse wheel, hopefully you have a mouse that's 3D, the 3 button. Okay, that's good, Neil. I'm glad. A 3-button mouse, or you can use the hand, which is the Q key. And what you can do is as you move up and down, you can see what it's looking at. It's looking in this direction. So this is the angle that I want, right? Again, so I can switch back and forth. So this is the angle, right? And what I want to do is I want to kind of, from the side, this is the back. So this is what it's saying, the back. I can look at the back as a plane, right? If I want to, or as from a perspective projection. So this is what I want right here. And what I want to do is I want to tilt this down, right? Because I'm looking at this, but here's something that I want to ask you. From this perspective, what is the angle that I want to tilt, and what am I tilting the camera? Which one, from a rotation perspective, do I need to tilt the camera at? All right, so let's suppose I tilt the camera down, right? And let's try some rotations here. So rotating across the x-axis seems to be right? And I want to rotate the x-axis down, right, to some degree. Let's make it so it's 10. Okay, so 10 degrees, it's angling down. That's what we're doing. And now what I want to do is I want to move the camera up. So again, I'm going to use the my control handles. I'm going to grab on to the y-axis and I'm going to pull it up. Okay. But again, on the x and the z-axis, you can still see that I don't see the entire plane yet. Let's move it back a little bit more. So I can go back outside of the plane, let's say -7, and something like a -7 on the z-axis. Let's see how that looks. So that's not bad. It's getting us closer. We can try other numbers like -6 and -6. Again, this is for positioning, so we're going to get the plane pretty good, but it still cuts off at the bottom. And we always want to use this picture as something that we want to kind of look at, right? So it kind of cuts off the bottom, but so does our picture, right, for the ground plane, all right? So it's not bad. -6 to -7 is what I recommend, okay? So starting off, there we go. Starting off -6 or -7. If I look at the game as a bigger viewport, that's pretty good. I personally think we should move it back more. So let's say -6.5 and even -6.5 here. So kind of giving a better view. We might also want to go higher on the y-axis. So let's say 3. And if we do that, we can change the angle of rotation to something like 15, right? Or even more, to kind of look down inside of the ball pit, okay? So here are my numbers: -6.5, 3, and -6.5 for the camera. Rotation is 20, 45, and 0 on the rotation stuff, right? So that looks pretty good. and we can see our plane here. So that's the first step. So we've got our ground plane. It's looking pretty bad, right? Let's make a material for this. So I'm going to go into materials, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to add in a new material. Okay, again, I did that by going into the materials folder that I created earlier, right clicking, and going into the create material option, right? When I do so, it's going to enter a new material. Let's just name this material is what it is, the ground material, okay? And what I want to do here is keep the standard shader, that's what we're using, right? And change our albedo, right, to a number that makes sense, that's more brown. Again, we can look up what brown is, so let's kind of go up and look it up. If I want a brown color, brown hex color, right? Then you can look at what it is. 964B00 is a kind of a chocolate brown. If you want to make it another color, there are a bunch of colors you can choose, right? If you want this one, does anyone have a preference other than just the regular brown for the ground plane? So take a look. Tortilla. Okay, some people like tortilla. Are you guys good? I like walnut. All right. So walnut or tortilla, doesn't really matter what you choose. I like walnut. I look a little darker. Maybe we can kind of go in between and choose caramel or peanut. Sure. Because I like, yeah, that's not a bad color either because it's kind of a lighter brown. It's not quite dark, but this is an example of what we can do. So let's suppose I'm going to use peanut 795C34. So how do I get that color? I click onto there, and at the bottom, here it is, 795C34, which gives me the color exactly that I want. Okay. And by the way, if you really want to be accurate, right, if I click away, what you could put in is the color that you have. So we chose peanut, right? So, we could put ground, and peanut color. Okay, so that way we know what the ground is. You might have different kinds of ground that you want to use, and it's okay to have this. Yes, you can. Neil's asking, can we use any colors we want for the assignment? Absolutely. I'm giving you a sense of how this works. Online, I'm seeing pecan too. They like pecan on YouTube. All right, so let's grab this ground color and we're going to apply it to the plane. And the quick way to do this is to grab and drag and drop the ground onto this plane. That's what I want to do, right? However, if you notice when I do this, it's like just not, right? How does that work? Well, the ground plane has a material already on it. And what I can do is I can take this ground material and drag and drop it onto this, which changes the ground plane to something that looks like this. Okay. By the way, the reason why it didn't work is because we are in game mode and not in scene mode. So here's scene mode, right? And there's the camera. This is what the scene would look like, as an example, from the view of the camera. Okay, this is what we're going to do here. By the way, there's a real quick way of doing this too, but I wanted to do it manually for you guys. All right, so that's the ground plane that we want, okay? By the way, you can also use fly control. So if you press the right mouse button and the WASD keys, you can fly through your scene the way you want, which gives you a really great control in Unity. All right, so that's one thing you can do, all right? So really cool stuff. So WASD will allow you to fly through by at the same time pressing the right mouse button. Okay, right mouse button, fly through. All right, and that's cool. If you right click, it even tells you that. So right click, take a look at those keys that are in the bottom of the eye. WASD works right there. Okay, so you should know how to do that. So that's the ground plane. That's awesome. Let's add the walls to the ground plane, right? So I want to have the walls come up, and let's get this going. So a couple ways to do this. I can regenerate the ground, the different plane again, and make another wall here and here and here and here. But we already have a ground plane. And I want to add the walls of my plane by using the ground plane as a basis. We already have the color of the box, but the walls won't be quite as high. So what can we do? Let's do the right wall first. And I want to look at it from the side here where I'm looking at, again, here I'm in the editor and I'm looking at it so that X is up, kind of Z is to the left and Y is up. Okay, that's how I'm looking at it. And I want to make this the right wall, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the ground plane and copy it. And the way to do that is press Control D. There's Control D. Now I have 2 ground planes, right? Let's rename this thing so it is the right wall. Okay, that's the way I want to do it. And I want to move this right wall to the right by selecting the handlebars with the W key or clicking this button. I'm selecting this object. And notice if I go to the right, I want the middle of it to go kind of to the right-hand side. We know that it's something like -5, all right, relative to the Z plane, the Z axis, -5. And so we have a bit of overlap, and that's okay, because now what we're going to do is rotate it across the x-axis. And if you notice, there's different ways of rotation. I can rotate it this way, right? Or I can rotate it the other way. And I want to rotate it this way, right? I want to rotate it this way by 90 degrees. Just put in 90 there. Again, if I back out, you can see that I have a wall now that is right here. Okay, but I also have this other part down here, and the reason why is because my wall is pretty big, right? Pretty tall, right? Notice also that the back plane is cold, which means it's not being drawn. Okay, it's not being drawn. So that's the right side of the thing. This is a pretty high wall. I don't want to make it that high. So what do I want to do? I want to scale it, you know, across the y-axis. So if you look at the y-axis, if I start to scale, you know, again, you might consider what I want to do. I want to move this to, let's say, 0.5, but then you don't see the scaling happening. Well, why? Because even though I'm thinking this is the y-axis, what axis is this really? It's actually the x-axis. I've just rotated this thing. So I want to scale this plane relative to its own axis, which is the right axis, the x-axis, or the z-axis. So if I reduce the z-axis to 0.5, then you can see that I have a smaller plane. And in fact, I don't need the x-axis, the z-axis at 0.5. It should be even half of this. Let's say 0.25 is what I want, but I want to move this up so that it is kind of at the bottom of this wall here. So this is the wall of the right plane. So what I want to do is I want to move this up to 1.25. So again, the numbers are for the right wall, 0, 1.25, -5 for the position, 90 for rotation, 0, 0 for the y and z axis, and the scale is 1, 1, and 0.25. That is the right wall. Are you with me? Check mark if you're with me, X if you're not. And you might be not with me because you're still downloading Unity. Some people are also laughing. I know. Right? But it's, you know what, guys? I want you guys to be with me because this is like, you know, manipulating Unity 101. All right? Which is really what we're doing. Okay? Let's see if you can intuit the rest of them before I get to it, and then check mine. What object did you enter again for the wall? You mean what object did I add in the hierarchy? Plane. That's all I did. Just a plane. And all I'm doing for the ground is I copied the ground. I Control D, which is duplicate. I duplicated the ground. I slid it across, and I kind of modified it so it would be like this. Let's do the left wall. So again, I'm going to take the right wall and Control D. I'm going to make a copy of it and rename it so it's left wall. And now I'm going to slide it the other way. So I want it to go way over here, right? But I want it to swing around, you know, kind of this way, right? 90 degrees. So now the position of the left wall, notice, is it's got to be exactly at 5. That's where you want it, okay? And I want to rotate it around this axis. Again, for me not to know, it's the y-axis that I want to rotate around, right? In this case, so let's rotate around the y-axis. And so that the y-axis shows 180 degrees. Or the z-axis is 180 degrees. There we go. So the numbers for the left wall, then, it's complete, are 0, 1.25, 5, 90, 0, and 180, with the scale that's the same as the other wall. Okay, there we go. Pretty neat. Let's do the top wall, which is up here. Again, I'm going to use the left wall as my my main one. So Control D, right? I make this the top wall. There we go. And what I want to do is I want to position this kind of at the top. So kind of over here, right? And again, you can see that this would be, the X position would be 10. But now I want to, well, actually that wouldn't be right. That would be more like 5. And I want to swing it around so it's rotated around, this axis. Again, I can use the rotation to move it this way. And you can see now that this is going to continue to rotate. So it is at 90 on the Z. And I want to move it across, right? So again, I'm just doing it by the numbers. So you can see that this is where I want it to be. And this should be exactly at 0, right, on the Z. There's the top part of my box. So again, you can see 5, 1.25, and 0 is the position. 90, 0, and 90 is the rotation, and 1, 1, and 0.25 as the scale. Last one, the bottom wall, which is going to be culled for us, okay, which means we're not going to be able to see the back of it as an example. Okay, so how would we do that? Well, what we do is we duplicate it. So top wall, Control D, right? We get the top wall. And we want to move this over. So again, I want to kind of move this down here. This is going to be the bottom wall. Let's just rename it. Bottom wall, right? And we can kind of move it to about the proximate position that we want. We can see that it's probably -5, right? However, what we're seeing is here is one part of the wall. If I go to this side, you'll see that it's culled, right? So it really depends on how you want to see the wall. Do I want to see it solid on the outside, or do I want to see it solid on the inside? But you can't have it both ways, unless I make a custom shader or something like that. Or unless I take 2 planes, which is something we can do, and I kind of overlap them, right? Which is one on one side and one on the other. But here, what I want to do is just to complete the box is I want to rotate this, so that only the inside, this is my job. My thing is to put it on the inside. So I'm rotating it across the Z-axis, right? Again, until I get it around to about this, which is 270. Okay, so now you can see that we have the box, but depending on which side we're looking at it, we only see the inner walls, not the outer walls. If you want to see both, you can have 2-sided planes, which means you'd have 2 planes, one on one side and one on the other side, so then you can see the complete box. Yeah, but if you use a box, Philip, the challenge with a box is that you're doing plane sphere collisions, and that might be an issue with your Unity objects, just FYI. All right? So that's why I don't want to push you to use that. Could you do it? Yes, you could, but that's not what we asked. All right, so now that I have all this done, this is my box. So what I can do is I can select all of them, ground, right wall, left wall, top wall, and bottom wall. Select them all, right-click, and go Create Empty Parent. Please do that. Create Empty Parent. And when I do an empty parent, I'm going to add in a parent. We're going to call this the box, right? And this is our play area. From what it looks like, if you look at the thing, it says you're going to basically drop 20 spheres right inside of this area here. That's what we're doing, and this is kind of like a box, right, that we're going to have everything in. Again, you can make it the same colors if you want. I'm just using a brown color. Cool. What does it look like in game view? It looks like this. So this is something that we want to modify. Again, what I want to do is I want to go back to that view. So where the camera is looking out of, and it kind of looks at it like from here, right? Again, if you want to see the camera, it's over here. Let's move to where the camera is. I'm just going to scroll over there. And this is me looking through the camera's eyes, right? So this is what we're seeing right now, approximately, right? Look, here's the bottom. You can see what that looks like. So this was nice before, but I think what we need to do is move the camera up even more. So again, what we can do is I want to move the camera up, right, across the y-axis. So again, if I increase that value, I want to move the camera maybe up to 5 now and move it back even further, minus maybe 7 at this point and minus 7. And that's pretty good. It'll give you a view of the scene. That's what it looks like now, but we don't see these walls. If this really bugs you, right, and it might bug you, again, what you can do is you can make these walls double-sided. You can make a wall prefab that has both sides as a wall, but this is good enough for collision detection. Again, it really depends. What Joss might instruct you to reverse the wall and make it so that the this side is solid and this side is solid. It's really up to you. But this is what would be seen right here. Cool. Couple things that are here that are illegal, all right? Illegal is we have a bunch of mesh colliders. These things have to be removed because that's not allowed. So let's remove all the mesh colliders. So again, I'm going to select all of them. And inside where it says mesh collider, I'm going to remove it. I'm going to go to this little component on the right here, right? So I'm going to remove the colliders for all of them at the same time because they share the same component. You can do that. And on the right here, I'm going to remove component. So no mesh collider. Okay, and I did that because I wanted to make sure that you guys adhere to the project requirements. Cool. Let's put this up on GitHub. How do we do that? For Unity, highly recommend this. Control save or file save. File, save project. Okay, so those are the two things you want to do first. File save project. We've got our box. Let's put this up on GitHub. How do we do that? Well, we can't do it through Unity. Nope. And you shouldn't do it when Unity's open. Double note, all right? Because sometimes we have meta tags that'll be in there that'll mess up your project. So please don't do this. However, we also know some stuff about GitHub, right? And a couple things we know about GitHub are any empty folders will not be put up on GitHub. If you want to keep the folder structure, we need to put in an empty file or some kind of git keep file, which we're going to do inside of the editor, the Explorer. So again, if you want to look at your assets, if you right click as an example, there's a couple things we can do. One of them, which is really important, is show in Explorer. So if I right click on the top of my assets, show in Explorer will pull up my Explorer window for the project. Here it is. And I want to go into assets and I want to go into these folders that are empty, like scripts for now. And I want to right click and I want to put a new file in there. Let's make a new text file. And we'll call this text file .getkeep and press enter. Okay, don't worry about this, the warning. Once I have my getkeep file, I can copy it and go into the other folders like audio, which has nothing, and paste it. And materials has something, we don't have to do it there. And models, we can put it in there. And prefabs, we can put it in there, as well as textures, we can put it in there. So if we have any of those, if I want to keep the folder structure, I just have to put a .getkeep file in all of the empty folders. Now that I'm doing this while we're live in Unity, by the way. Okay, now that we've done this, notice in Unity, we still see these as empty because Unity does not identify or realize what .getkeep is. This is good, right? So there's nothing that's in here. It's not going to clutter your Unity at all, the .getkeep file. But if you put a text file in there, it'll read it. So don't do that. .getkeep, all right? And I'll put that inside of, just in case you can't hear me, .getkeep is what you want to put in each folder that is empty, okay? Next, let's put this up on GitHub because you need to know how to do that for your project, all right? So again, I've got to close Unity down. This is number one, exit. And I highly recommend using Gitkraken, all right, for, for a version control system, all right, or version control tool. So again, download and install Gitkraken, gitkraken.com. I would recommend this. It's a visual tool for Git and GitHub, right? How did I get? I just added a text file, Miguel, and I renamed it to .getkeep. The whole thing, including the extension. All right, so here is Gitkraken. I recommend downloading and installing Gitkraken. I'll put that link again here inside of our week 9. So this is download and install GitKraken. I recommend this. All right. I think it's a pretty straightforward tool to use. There's other ones too. You can use whatever way you want to put it up on GitHub. If you want to use command line, use command line. It's up to you. But I'm using GitKraken to show you how easy it is. Right. So what I want to do here is I've already gone and downloaded GitKraken. So I'm going to use it, GitKraken. And GitKraken will come up. Here it is. Now, again, I'm recording all this so you have access to it later on. So just in case you missed something, you can always go back. What I want to do here instead is I want to, when you get a screen that looks like this in GitKraken, again, it's a very quick download, so I'm going to give you a second. If you want to try it out, you can try it with me. You can use, Carl, you can use whatever you like. If you want to use, GitHub Desktop, it's up to you. Yes, you can. You can make anything you want. I'm using the free version, and I can make it private as well. No problem there. And it doesn't matter because you can always change it on GitHub anyway. Yeah. And again, you can use both for sure. You can use whatever you want. All right, so I want to make a new repo. I want to start a new repository, start a local repo. That's what I want to do here. And again, there's some options here. I'm just going to do local only for now, okay? And it's going to point me in a specific spot. Here's the trick with this one, okay, with GitKraken. I want to look at the outside repository folder. So in other words, if I have a folder called GAME2005, that is where I'm going to start, okay? And then select that folder. So that is my outer folder. But the name of the project has to be put here. So then I'm going to go back to Browse, click the starter. I'm not going to select it. I'm just going to copy it, copy the name, cancel, and put that starter name right here. Now that's the full path that I got here. And that's what you want, guys. You don't want to do it here with Browse. It's kind of funky with GitKraken. I found this is the best method to get the right path. Otherwise, it'll make a new folder inside the other folder for you, which would be bad. Okay? So again, the name of your project here, your containing folder is where it says initialize in. And the full path is something you should look at. The default branch name is main, and your gitignore template, you can actually search for one, is Unity. You can select a Unity gitignore folder. Now this is great because what it's going to do is, it's amazing actually, Carl. It's really good for merging. Again, as a visual tool. To me personally, I like to use command line, but I'm trying to make it easy for everyone. That's why I'm using GitKraken. License, you can put any license you want. I'm just going to put an MIT license. Doesn't really matter, right? And once you've done this, this is your first piece. Again, I'm going to make mine the starter. You can call yours whatever you want. Obviously, you want something like GAME2005, F2021, assignment 3 is what you want to call it. All right, and something else. I want to click Create Repository here. And what it's going to do is it's going to make my repository if everything went well. Okay, if everything went well. And I've closed down Unity. We see that there's very little files, like 40. I can stage all these changes. And now you can see these are all the files that I've added in. I already have an initial commit. What I need to do now is make a new commit that says added project files. And then click commit changes to 40 files. So now locally, this is my local machine here, it's visual. I have two commits, an initial commit and my added project files commit. I want to push this to GitHub, but I don't have a remote. So let's click it anyway. And it says there's no remote. Would you like to add one? Yes, I do. Now, for the first time you do this, right, I've clicked GitHub, but you can also use GitLab or Bitbucket or anything else. Doesn't matter how I get to your repository, guys, right? But anything that's Git friendly is what I'm asking you to do, right? You can select an account. Usually it's the account name. So normally it would be this for me, but I'm of course teaching you guys. So it's going to be George Brown College, right? And the repository name is here. Now, here's where you can make it private. And I can do it even with the free account. Okay, I don't need to figure that, there's no need for you to worry. Let's go back to public. Okay. And because I'm going to share this thing with you now, right? I'm going to click public and click create remote and push local references. Immediately, it's going to create my repository for me. It's going to ask you for permission for the first time you do this. If you're doing it on your own, it'll ask you permissions from GitHub. It might ask you for all kinds of little things, but it should totally work, no problem, after you give permission. And then when I go up online, if I look at my GitHub repository, right, and if I go back to George Brown College, you'll see that now I have this. So GAME2005, F2021, Assignment 3 Starter. Let's get that link. You can see what it looks like. Notice that in my assets folder now, I still have my structure, my folder structure, regardless if I had nothing in there or not, because I used .gitkeep, right? My .gitkeep file, okay? So that kind of retains the structure of my code. And then you see these meta files. Sometimes these meta files get messed up. If you're using something in Unity, that's why you close Unity down before you push it up to GitHub. Please do that. It's going to save you a lot of trouble, okay? Again, there's other things you can do to mitigate this, but that's kind of the first step. The other thing you want to do here is you can change the file. So if I want to change the file name here, I can say that this is, I'm using Markdown, GAME2005, F2021, Assignment 3 Starter. And I can say kind of the description, starter project for GAME 2005 in the fall 2021 semester, right, for assignment 3. Okay, that's what it says. And then what I can do is I can commit changes. This is what it looks like now for my README file, but now I'm in trouble, right? Because my README file is one commit ahead of where I am locally. So if I want to go back to Gitkraken, I can just do a pull. And when I do that, it's going to say from where, main, and it's going to pull right back into my README file right here locally. Now I'm in sync again. Andre says, if to seek on the best UI to work with Merge, it would be GitHub Desktop. If to be not so strict and you want beautiful and eyes-friendly Git UI, Gitkraken is the best one. If you want to do it even better than both, you can just use command line, Andre, which is like really a lot of control. And here's a really great thing. I know. Here's a great thing. Take a look at this. Andre, you might like this one. Look at this, terminal. Boop. Terminal allows you to look to get all the CLI right here. This is really great. So for example, if I want to say something like git status, you can do that right here. And you can do all your Git commands right within Gitkraken. That's why I like it, because it gives you a lot of control, right? And so it's the best of both worlds, right? All right. So that's it. That's that one, right? And the next piece that I want is, now that I've come up, let's add some spheres and we'll stop for the day, right? How is command easier? More control and faster, actually. Less chance for error. But that's just me. Carl, whatever you want is, to use doesn't matter to me, because at the end of the day, all I care about is I get the final version on GitHub. That's all I care about, right? All right, so the next part that I want, let's pull up Unity again. So back to hubs, I want to go into GAME2005 F2021 Assignment 3 Starter, and let's put that up. Oh, by the way, just before I forget, I want to put the starter here, right? So let's do that before I forget. And I want to grab this and I'll put it here. So we'll say, let's add a web link, and we'll say that starter repo for assignment 3. So just in case someone missed today, right? Then you can kind of come in here and do that, right? You can kind of grab my repository for assignment 3 and start from there, okay? Neil says, do you have a git ignore to ignore? Yes, it's all built in. Remember I did that when I did it in Gitkraken, it actually added a git ignore file that's great, right? So if you look at the repository I just shared with you, here's git ignore. Take a look at that git ignore file. That comes right from Gitkraken, and I think it's a pretty good one, right? So there's logs, right, that you were thinking about. Build folder and library, temps, all that stuff is right here, and it does it all for you. It's a great little thing that you can do. That's a good resource too. I like that. But this is really great. It kind of gives you everything you need. Okay. All right. So now we're back in Unity, and let's add some spheres of different colors. Notice what we said before is we wanted 20 spheres. So let's add 4 different colors or something like that. Now here we see that there are red, green, blue, yellow, and orange. Let's add all those colors. There's even some other ones. Heck, you can make as many ones as you want. We'll put all the colors that we see here in there. Okay, so blues, the greens, the oranges, the yellows, the purples. We'll do all that right now. And that's really materials. So let's add a first sphere. Let's see how that looks. So let's add a first sphere. So again, 3D objects. I want to add in a sphere, right? And the sphere is underneath the plane right now. So let's pull it up. And it is kind of hidden, right? So here's the sphere. So I want to put it into the scene so you can see it. And it's pretty big, right? Here's where it's pretty big, but it fits in the box, right? So it kind of fits in the box. So if I had 20 of these, it'd be no problem, right? So I think it's not a bad size. The standard sphere size could work okay, all right? And, but we want to make different spheres, and we'll make them prefabs for us as well. By the way, something that we want to do to save us some trouble later on, if we want to kind of reform the box or package it up, is in prefabs. What you can do is take your box and drag and drop it into your prefab area. What that does is you can reuse that box anytime you want, okay? For now, that's okay. And by the way, you can always modify each of the objects inside the box, right? But I've made it a prefab. You don't have to. You can always open the prefab. If I want to take it away from being a prefab, right? As an example, I can go to prefab and then unpack completely, and it'll unpack the prefab as well. All right. But I'm making it a prefab just in case I want to drag and drop it in. If I mess up the box, I can just drag and drop another version of the box in there, right? That's a good thing to do. All right, so sphere. So this is the sphere. It's in the middle of my screen. Let's put it somewhere in the screen, like kind of in the middle. So again, I want to put it somewhere here in the middle of the box. We can look at it from the top down again, right, where I can see approximately where the top of the middle of the box is, something like this. And we can see that on the z-axis it's 0, right? And it's something like negative 0.33. If I've made this 0, that's kind of 0, 0 on the x and y axis. And from a height perspective, let's make it so it doesn't touch the box right now. So something like 1.5, right? Just to make it so the numbers are equal. So that's where my sphere is going to appear. And of course, this sphere is going to have a name to it. We're going to make this the red sphere. So it's red sphere. It doesn't look red. Why? Because we don't have material. So let's make the red material. So again, you can do this lots of different ways, guys. All I'm doing is trying to help you out. Red material. And we can change this simply just to all red, right? So real red material. And I'm in scene now. So if I take the red material and drag and drop it onto the sphere, it changes the sphere to red. Here's my red sphere. I want to remove the collider because that's not allowed. Okay, so no more red sphere collider. Okay, and what I can do is I want to take this red sphere and drag and drop it into my prefabs folder, like so. So prefabs, red sphere, drag and drop. Okay, and now let's duplicate it, Control D, right, as an example. And let's change the name from red sphere to green sphere. You see where I'm going with this, but this is how easy it is, green sphere. And let's suppose that the green sphere is going to be, let's change our perspective again, just a second. So we'll kind of come into it from this side, right? So I'm going to say that all objects are going to be to the left or the right or up or down, right? For the red sphere. So I'll add some extra spheres in there, right? So the next one, we're going to move across the z-axis here, and that's going to be the green sphere, right? But it doesn't look green. We'll make it at the exact position. So 3 is where we're going to put it, right? And the green sphere, let's make it green. So again, I'm going to go into materials, add a new material. If you really want to, we can do all the materials at once before we finish. So this is the green material. Let's do it together, guys. Let's do it quick. Green material would be green, right? Pretty simple stuff, right? There's the green material. And what about, though, if I want to pull this prefab, it's already a prefab and I want to pull it in? Well, what if I do this? It's going to ask me, do I want to make an original prefab or a prefab variant? Let's make an original prefab. So now it's a green sphere. Okay, so separate prefab than the other one. Same thing with the red sphere again. I go back to the red sphere, Control D, make a copy, call this thing the blue sphere. Okay, move it across over here, which looks to be about -3. Okay, and the blue sphere needs a blue color. So let's go back into materials, add in a new material. So here's the material. Let's call this blue. And the blue material is going to be just full blue, full on blue. Okay, full on blue. Okay, and take that blue material, drag and drop it onto that. Let's make sure the green material is the right green too. Did I do it? No, it's quite a little bit of red in there. There we go. All right, so red material, green material, blue material. I want to take that blue sphere and put it into the prefabs folder. Boom, boom, right? Make it original. And now let's add two more, a yellow and an orange, and maybe even a purple. We'll do that too. So again, we'll grab the red sphere, Control D. We'll make the yellow sphere up here, right? As an example. So this is our yellow sphere. All right, and we're going to put this at 3, right? And we're going to make a new material. I'm going a little quicker here so I can get this done. So the material will be a yellow material, right? And we'll make it yellow. So again, yellow is this color, right? So how do I make yellow? 255, 255 here for both yellow, for both green and red. That makes yellow, right? And we can take that yellow material and drag and drop it on. Okay, yellow sphere. We need to go to make it a prefab. We're going to drag and drop the yellow sphere in there, right? And make original. Yay. Sometimes I want to make a prefab variant, Nihar, if I want to make it so it's exactly like the red sphere, but maybe the red sphere with a bit of a bump on it. You know, something that's like like truly a variant. Otherwise, I want to make a completely new one if I'm changing a bunch of properties. Okay, two more, right? And then we'll be done. This is good practice for you anyway. So Control D, right? Again, this will be the orange sphere. Orange sphere, right? And the orange sphere is going to be pulled over here, right? As an example. So looks like it's -3 here, right? And we want to make the orange sphere have an orange material. Let's do that by adding in a new material, orange material. Okay, here it is. And now we want to make it more orangey. So again, this is something where you modify stuff. So now what kind of orange do you want, right? And that's the trick, right? Do you want kind of like this orange, which is more like a gold? Well, we can always look that up. So we can say, I want orange color hex. So you can see that there are different colors we can choose. Oh, let's go with this one, shades of orange. I like this one because we did it last time. So guys, which orange do you think you want to use? You know, I mean, a honey orange looks like an orange to me, but some people might like a true orange. You know, this kind of stuff. Marmalade, I like that color too. Marmalade might be an interesting orange to use. Why not? Let's use marmalade, Samuel. So D16002. So D16002 is what we're going to use here. Right, so D16002, a marmalade orange. And we'll say that marmalade orange color. Why not? Okay, and we're going to take this marmalade orange color and drag and drop it over this sphere right here. So now we have a marmalade orange sphere. We're just going to call it an orange sphere. And we're going to go into prefabs and drag and drop that orange sphere into the prefabs folder and make it an original. Last one, and this is kind of a little bit tricky, but we can do this. Let's use the Q key to go down, right? And I want to select my red sphere again and pull it up this time. Control D. make a new sphere, pull it up to where it's going to be above like this. So something like 3, right? So we can see that that is what's happening here. Hard to see, but this one will be the purple sphere of death, right? That's what it's going to be. The purple sphere, right? And now, of course, we want to make this purple. So let's go back to our color guide and go, purple heck color, purple with a PU maybe. How about that? But I like this one. I always like these ones. These are pretty good. So what purple color do we want to use for this one? Anyone? I know, purple Paddington Bear. I know. Orchid. Okay, an orchid purple. All right, I'll take that one. Amethyst, Joshua. Well, I'll take Samuel said it first. Okay, so Samuel was like quick on the draw. Orchid purple. All right, AF69EF. You can make it whatever color you want. AF69EF. Let's make a material. Great, a new material. And we're going to say orchid purple material. And the orchid purple material is going to be that code, AF69EF, AF6. So I think it's really useful for us to have a hexadecimal color right there. So we can get whatever the color is going to be exact, as opposed to us guessing what the color looks like, right? So that's pretty good. And those, my friends, are the spheres, right? Let's grab that prefab and get from the orange sphere or the purple sphere. Let's put that in there. And now we have a lot of spheres we can use where you can randomly collect any one of these 6 spheres to make your, the balls, the spheres that are going to be inside of the box, because we're supposed to have 20. All right, so not bad. We've created our environment and we have all of our spheres. We don't need these spheres here in the environment, so let's just get rid of them. So now that we've made them in prefabs, right, I can get rid of all these spheres here. And what I do, if I want a sphere, I can just pull it in, right? So there's a green sphere, and if I want an orange sphere, I can pull that in. And it doesn't have to start here. I've just given it a position so we can look at it and we can inspect it later on. Okay. Yes, we can also unpack the prefab if we want to. Absolutely. All right, so that is the way. Let's save this and put it up on GitHub, right? It does save the transform, absolutely. All right, so again, file, save project, right? And let's close it off. File, exit. Right, I know that you're like, wait, do I have to exit every single time? Yes, you do. And then there's my work in progress. I have 26 changes. I'm going to view the changes. Here they are, all the materials. I'm going to stage all the changes, go here and say added sphere prefabs. Okay, commit changes, and we can push this up to GitHub. And done. All right, so now you have the latest changes up online as well. Questions around the stuff we've covered in Unity. I know some of you may do this differently, but I wanted to give you all the same starting point for the game. All right, all the same starting point. So there's no one that can say that, hey, I don't know how to use Unity. I don't know how to start. You guys can all use this or a variant of, or make your own, okay? But the idea here is that no one can say now, I don't have a starting point. Here's your starter, all right? And there was a couple of things that I wanted to talk about, which are a little bit as an underlying motive for me, which is I've also showed you how to move objects around in Unity, in the Unity interface, which is something that was a kind of an underlying motive for me as well. All right, so I wanted to do that. So cool. We have everything we want. If I run the game, it'll actually put me into preview mode, and we'll see what the box looks like. Even in preview mode, when I'm running, in run mode, I can always drop a sphere in there, and you can see what it would look like, kind of in real time, right? So this is something that we can do. One thing that we have to develop next time, and if you stop, by the way, it just removes everything from the hierarchy. Anything you add during runtime is temporary, for the most part. So what about a user interface that allows me to do stuff? There's a couple ways to do this, and one of them is to use the canvas as a user interface, right? So the canvas itself, if I want to add some buttons to the screen, right, as an example, so I can, change the number of spheres. If I want to have a little control panel that I can hide and show and all that kind of stuff, I can put that on the top left corner of my screen or somewhere else, or even make it movable. Well, for now, let's put it on the top left corner of the screen and see what we can do there. So I want to add a new UI. We're going to stick with the non-Text Mesh Pro UI. So we're going to stick with regular stuff. And let's add in a panel. Notice when I add in a panel, it kind of covers the entire screen. And why? Because the way that Unity works with user interfaces, it actually abstracts the user interface to create this massive UI that's way out here in world space, okay? And it does this abstraction so that way it's easier for you to work with the user interface when there's nothing to do with the game itself. However, I want to point out a couple things here. One, let's make this panel smaller. So I want to make the panel that kind of appears in the top left corner of the screen. So this is what the screen would be representing. This is your screen representation, right? So I want the panel to appear somewhere here, right? As an example, you can move it around like normal, wherever the panel is going to be. The panel is just a container for your user interface, okay? And on the left, you can see that in the game, we now see a panel that's right here, okay? Wouldn't it be nice if we can see this and the game? Yes, you can do that. In the canvas, what you can do is instead of the canvas renderer being screen space overlay, you can make it so that it is screen space camera. If we did this, you'd have to pull across the main camera component in there, right? And when we did that, I can go back to my my kind of like that box area right here, and now, well, we see it, but it's way over here, okay? And for us, it doesn't really make a difference where we're looking at it like this. It's always in the screen. No matter where we look at, it's inside the camera view. So, this is neat, but I don't know how it really helps. So yes, we can do that. The other thing you can do is you can make the canvas appear in world space. So you can convert the camera to world space, and now it's just hovering there in world space, like forever. I can actually look at the camera in different places. But that's why we have the camera in screen space overlay. We have it in screen space overlay, so it's an abstraction, right? So we don't have to look at the camera itself when we're moving things around. And if you really want to look and define your UI, you can always switch to 2D mode up here. So switch to 2D mode. You can, kind of zoom out, and all you see is your camera overlay. So this is what I want to do here with you guys, right? What I want to do is when I'm designing my UI, it's inside of the panel object itself. This is where I'm going to add my buttons. Let's add a label and a button, and then we'll be done for the day. All right, so a label and a button. So right click on the panel and add in a new UI text object. All right, and inside that text object, that could be something where you can define a bunch of different things here. Okay, so one is, right, what is contained in the text? Something like, for example, the gravity. Let's say, for example, I want to make, turn gravity on. We can turn gravity on or off, that kind of stuff. So gravity would be the checkbox I want to make. You can make any item you want. So here's my text. We'll call this the gravity label. Gravity label. If I can spell properly today. I don't think I can. Right? And you can move this text box any way you like. So for example, the gravity label can be put wherever you like. You can see that here I can align my text any way I want. I want to put it in the middle. I can also change the size of my text box by zooming in with the mouse wheel, right? So I can change the size of my text box by using this method here, where I kind of select the size, the handles, this one. So it's the fourth one over, fifth one. And you can resize your text box that way. So again, I want just the gravity label resize, so I can kind of bring that in, whatever you want. And then I can add in another control. So I can add in my panel, I can a UI, and there's a lot of other things you can put, a button, a slider, a scroll bar, a drop-down field, an input field of some kind or whatever. You can also put in other kind of controls as well. A toggle, which is like a checkbox. So this kind of toggle includes the toggle and the kind of the UI itself, right? So instead of gravity, maybe we can rename this the gravity label. We can call this like our control panel. We'll call this control panel as a title more than anything else. If it's not wide enough, remember we can always change the size of the control panel to make it whatever we want. So we can put in the text for the control panel, call this control panel. And we can put this, where we want it. So we can move it around. And we can center it because this is a title now as opposed to a text. So let's say the center is right here. And we can use our rect transform component to put it right in the middle. So if I want to put it right in the middle, I can press the Alt key and I can decide to put it right in the middle. It's middle of my panel, right? As an example, that's the dead middle of my panel. And I can kind of move it down to where I want. And then we can move the toggle, which is my gravity. I can toggle that on and off by putting it over here, right? So the toggle, for now, we won't make the toggle work, right? But in my toggle, we can put in, there's a background. We can change the background. We can also use the check mark, whether it's checked on or off, and the label, which is what it says here, which will be gravity. So I can turn gravity on or off, gravity label. Let's make that what it is, and this will be called gravity. Okay, cool. So then how does this look, this whole control panel, how does it look in the game? Well, it looks like this. So you can kind of start thinking about making your UI very simply by doing it like this. Sam says, why does it look fuzzy? Because it's inside of the panel. Panel itself has a material on it, right? And it has a color. Notice there's a color, and it has a bit of alpha transparency. You can make it so that the panel has more alpha transparency. If you want it to be like a very light panel, make it something like alpha transparency of 30 if you want to. It's really up to you. I think the 100 was pretty good, which kind of gives us a sense of what it is. You can change the color of the panel and whatever. Neil says, should we use Text Mesh Pro? It's not required. We're not making a full game, but it's pretty good that we do it this way. So you can add any controls here you like. So we can have a checkbox. We can have a slider. So let's add a slider control in there. So I want to say that in the panel, I want to add a slider, right? So I can add a slider as well. You can see where it appears, right? So again, in the scene, I can position the slider where I want, right? And I can add some kind of text label that tells me what the slider is. For example, how much gravity that I want when it's on, maybe gravity level, right? So that will be something that I want to have. I can increase my gravity scale. We'll call it gravity scale. So let's add in another, in the panel, we'll add in a text item, right? So again, UI text, and we'll call this gravity scale label. So we know what that is, and we can kind of start aligning what this would look like, right? So gravity scale will be here. We can start thinking about how this is going to appear in my UI, right? And then what the label, how this is going to look here, as we do things. Let's also do some normalization. I'll move this up a little bit to there, right? And like so. Okay, so that's kind of what we can do. We can start thinking about adding different scales. We can also press OK and cancel, right, as an example. So you can adjust your scale, then press OK, or you can do it in real time. It's up to you. Let's add an OK button, right? So for adding a button, just the same thing, UI, and we can add in a button, and we can put in the button that says, OK, put it on the right corner, let's say, and we can change the size of the button itself, just like normal, and make it so that it says OK. So that button is actually made up of two components, the button itself. So we'll call this the OK button, right? And this is the OK label. We can call this just OK. And then that's it. So now we can make our little panel the way we want. We can start building our UI, and you can see that it looks like this. It's actually, when you run it, it actually is clickable and playable. So you can click on the button. You can change this. We'll want to be able to change the slider. We can do so. We can change the slider. We can uncheck and check the gravity. It doesn't do anything right now, but we can do all those kind of things. Samuel says, it looks better from the camera. Of course, I know we'll do functionality later, but where is binding this to a variable done? Yes, you can do it in a C# script, absolutely. But what you want to do is each item, I've stopped running it now. If I want to make the slider work, right, notice that there is a control down here. See right here in the slider itself, the slider control. There it says on value change. This is an event listener. I can click onto this and I can add in a script, an item that has a script on it that basically responds to the slider event. Okay, so it's pretty cool. But again, you can look up how to use sliders and buttons and labels and everything else up on the Unity documentation. It's pretty clean and nice how this works. Same thing with the OK button. The OK button has a click event connected to it, and you can add a handler to handle the click event listener. All right, so pretty straightforward. And same thing with the toggle. The toggle, which is a gravity checkbox, we can actually we should name it. So this is like the gravity checkbox. Gravity checkbox, right? That's what it really is. The gravity checkbox, which is a toggle, has an on value changed event. Again, you can add a bit of code, and you can make it so that when this toggles on and off, it works. You can also add a keyboard shortcut to remove the panel and show the panel. And we'll do that when we're together again next day. And the reason for this is because we're just running out of time. All right, so we've kind of got some elements here, and it's going to help you create something that is pretty good for the assignment. So I've worked on some parts of the assignment with you, and Joss will work on the other parts, so that way you're closer to getting your assignment 3 started. All right, let's save this. File, save project, and then file exit, and then put this up on Unity, GitHub. Sorry. So back to here, I have one thing that I've changed, which is a work in progress in the main scene. I'm going to stage all changes, and I want to, I'll say added simple UI prototype, which is what we've done. We don't have anything that's in there that's working right now. It's just a prototype, and changed. And there we go. That's it for today. Any questions about anything that we've covered about Unity and about the project? I think you're well on your way to starting the project off if you download mine. If you weren't able to follow along, you weren't able to install Unity for some reason, or it took too long and you couldn't follow along because of that reason, that's okay. You have a starter that you can use for your assignment. Joss may give you other starters as well. That's great, Miguel. I'm glad that you're doing that. That's the purpose of this. It also gives you a sense of how to, which is what I wanted to get you going on. So there shouldn't be any, the other part, which is, the physics part, adding colliders and adding other things, that's on you. Okay. Any questions at all before we go? Okay, that's it for me, guys. I'm just going to stop recording this. I'm hoping this helped you, right? And